Hello, welcome. My name is Doug Gordon. I'm a host of the show, Inspirational People, Inspirational Stories, where the aim of the show is to interview inspiring people who have been successful in their field or inspired others to success in some form. Today's guest is Gerry Duffy. Gerry is one of the top speakers and performance coaches in the UK and Ireland. He was once a slightly overweight smoker and transformed himself into one of the top endurance athletes in the world, doing 32 marathons in 32 days and 10 Ironman in 10 days as well. His past clients have included the likes of Aerlingus, British Gas, and Meta, where he helped them with motivation, resilience, and team building. Gerry has also written 3 best-selling books and spoken on some of the largest stages all around the world. He will also be speaking at the Leadership and Life Mastery Summit in Dublin on the 21st of September, which is this month, and we're really delighted to have him. He really is a true inspiration and a pleasure to have on the show. Gerry, welcome to the show.
Thanks indeed, Doug. Great to be with you again.
Likewise, yeah. I mean, I've been watching your career is just going from height to height in terms of brilliance. I saw you obviously speaking at the Lights Pendulum Summit. I've seen you all over the place on LinkedIn in some great companies, helping them all around the UK, all around Ireland as well. One of the things that I know a lot of people know about you, and it's probably one of your early things that really is a long time ago now, but I know you were, I think, 50 pounds overweight, smoking, and not in the best of health. And then suddenly, something made you change and became this incredible endurance athlete and doing 32 marathons in 32 days. What was the kind of the changing pattern or the changing thought, the instigator of this incredible journey that you're on?
I think it was just a lifestyle in my 20s that I'd unknowns to myself kind of fallen into, where I was, developing bad habits around lack of exercise and smoking cigarettes, and just it became less and less happy and put on more and more weight, and just eventually I said enough is enough. And you were kind enough to mention some of the events that I've done in the past, but like I'm in my mid 50s now. But it was a simple decision at the time was, come on, you just got to kind of lose a bit of weight here, and like smoking is not good for you. So I just made some simple but profound and also challenging decisions to kind of address some challenges that I felt I had in those areas, and with no master plan of maybe evolving into doing the kind of things I've been lucky enough to do, but just simply losing a bit of weight. And when I lost a bit of weight, I lost a bit more weight, and then when I got a bit fitter, I got even fitter, and then just kind of kept going. And then I guess when you look at back kind of 20, 30 years later, you can see how I kind of made significant changes. But at the time, they were almost like incremental improvements in different areas that kind of thankfully led me to a better place.
And you still look pretty much super fit now. I take it you're still keeping the running up and the training up and everything like that?
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I exercise almost every day. I do it for physical fitness. I do it for mental fitness. I do it for fun. I do it for fulfillment. I do it to kind of get me going in the morning, because almost all my exercise is done very early in the morning. And for me, that really works. I'm an early morning person, and it just sets me up for the day. In fact, if I didn't exercise, it would be not almost like brushing my teeth now at this stage. It's almost like almost an unconscious thing, but it's a part of me. It's in my DNA, and it's something that I know helps me be the best version of myself in all the different areas of my life.
I love that. And it sounds like it's part of a morning routine now for you. Is there anything, I mean, in personal development, we talk a lot about sometimes morning routines, getting us ready for the day. Is there anything else that you do to add into the exercise, or is the exercise the real key for you?
Yeah, so a typical morning, kind of Monday to Friday, would be I kind of get up at around 5 a.m. and I would, maybe usually go 4, 5, 6 miles, something like that. But one of the things that I do that adds greater value to it is I do a gratitude exercise. And sometimes I do it when I'm running, sometimes I do it when I stop. But I really challenge myself not to do the same as I did yesterday, but just to go a bit deeper, to provoke my thinking a little bit more, to be grateful for something else. Or even if I'm grateful for my health, tomorrow I might think of different aspects of my health that I'm grateful for, people in my life. And I find their morning rituals that really kind of, you're looking after your physical well-being, but you're also, for me, looking after my mental well-being, and making yourself consciously, almost in some ways provokingly, if it's a word, aware of what you have, what you're privileged to have in your life. Because as I express gratitude for those things, I sometimes think, well, how challenging would life be if you didn't have those things? So it creates a great gratitude awareness to really set myself up for 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, the rest of the day. And so that's something that I find super helpful in terms of a daily behavior.
I love that. And yeah, gratitude is the attitude, as they always say. And I think if anybody's out there and got children, if you give them a present and they're not grateful, you don't feel like giving them anything else. So why would your subconscious mind not let you have anything else if you're not grateful for all the things you already have? So I absolutely love that. And I do that myself. And you've gone on in terms of gratitude. We're very grateful for your 3 amazing books that you've written in terms of Who Dares Runs, TikTok 10, and The Goal Setter. Just tell us a little bit about those books, what inspired you to write them, and a brief kind of idea about them as well.
Yeah, so the Who Dares Runs was the first book I wrote many years ago, and it was just kind of talking about when I went from being very unfit to becoming very fit, I guess, where I got this idea to run with a friend of mine 32 marathons in 32 days, so one in every county on the island of Ireland. And so it kind of just gives people an insight into what was involved. And it was an amazing journey. There was a lot of people a part of it. So that's what that book was about, the TikTok 10. A year later, you mentioned an event, the 10 iron distance triathlons in 10 days. So the book TikTok 10 exclusively looks in at that event and kind of talks about all the training behind it and the experience of the 10 days itself, because it was an epic event for me to be lucky enough to participate in, and I was lucky enough to finish it. And it was an amazing journey, not just in the training, but even in the days itself, because they were so long, the days. Like doing an iron distance triathlon in one day, it takes a long time. When you're doing 10 in 10 days, you get slower and slower, so the days are longer and longer. But it was just, I guess, an insight into what was involved in that. And then The Goal Getter was with the subtitle of 35 Different Ways to Reach Your Goals, was a book that I wrote about 8 or 9 years ago, where I just give kind of short chapters, just a goal setting tip. And so it's kind of, a set of mini chapters. I met somebody at a talk earlier this week, and they said they still kind of refer to the book where they can just dip in and open up any chapter and kind of get a message and close the book again. And, in the first chapter in that book, I call it the number one rule. And it's a book all about giving simple goal setting tips. But the number one rule for me in achieving a goal is to respect the goal. So to do what you know you have to do it to the best of your ability. And if I want to lose weight, for example, I need to respect that goal. If I want to grow my business by a certain percentage, it's going to challenge me. I need to respect it. So respect is identifying all the things I need to do to grow the business to that level, but then critically doing them, critically sticking with them. If I hit a wall, well, they're extra tests. So that's maybe just an extra opportunity to show even more respect. And there's a quote that I share in the book around commitment that I learned from somebody else, and they shared with me that commitment is doing what you said you were going to do long after the mood that you said it in has left you. So when we're on the route to a goal, there'll be times when we're not in the mood. That's one of the extra tests, I guess, that we have to pass. But if we truly respect the goal, well, then we will stick with the commitment. And it can be in those moments, just sticking there, showing that respect, and ultimately it may well lead us to the goal. And that might be just a missing piece. So that's an extra example of respecting. And that for me is the number one rule.
I love that, Gerry. And obviously, goal setting is something very important for all of us. It gives direction towards our end missions or whatever we're trying to achieve in life. In terms of, you must have, like any normal human, days where you wake up and you just don't feel like it, and you just think, what does Gerry Duffy do to get himself out of that don't feel like doing back into that inspired state of action?
Yeah, so I might give two answers to that, Doug, if I may. Sometimes that's the reality, because we're all human beings at the end of the day. And maybe as I mature, as I get older, I realize, like maybe just today is a day when you're not going to be motivated, and that's fine too. Like we all have days, and maybe life is that's what you're meant to do at that time. Maybe you're meant to take a day off or whatever it is. If it's something bigger and we hit a wall, say you're on the journey to a goal, and you hit a wall and the mojo is gone, and the motivation or the drive or the training or the call you have to make or whatever it is, and it's just not happening. One thing I've learned is to visualize the finish line, visualize, whether it's, if you're doing exams, it may be visualizing the graduation, or visualizing getting the contract, or visualizing finishing the race or the day of the race, and to bring yourself forward to that moment, to consciously bring it to life and see what you want to see. And then for me, if it was a finish line, or the last mile or two of a run, or whatever it might be, an event that you might enter, I picture, well, how do you want to feel on that day? Do you want to finish that event? Because if you do, well, then you've got to come back to today, because the training you need to do today is going to give you that. So sometimes by picturing ultimately what the ultimate prize is for you, it can kind of reignite the motivation to do the things in that moment that you know that you need to do to be successful.
I love that, and I'm a complete advocate of that. I used to play hockey to a high level and would visualize where I was going to score the goal, how I was going to score the goal, and what was going to happen. And I would say 50% of the goals that I visualized like that happened like that as well. So it's brilliant. Absolutely love that. And you've gone on now from being incredibly successful in sports to moving into being incredibly successful in the corporate world, helping people in terms of training, corporate training and coaching with various different things. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you do it.
Yes, so I've been a full-time speaker now for 14 years. And in that time, I'm very lucky. I work with some great companies, and I tend to be invited to do two things. It's all ultimately summarized in two words. High performance is what I love, but I feel very comfortable in the corporate sector, whether it's speaking at conferences, which I'm privileged to do quite often, where, there could be a 1 or a 2 day conference where they're bringing in lots of internal or technical speakers, specifically on the expertise of, if it's a technology conference, technology, but, I don't have any of that. It could be a pharmaceutical company. I don't have that expertise. But very often they invite external speakers to maybe speak about motivation, or speak about resilience, or maybe just to share a story, or to speak about high performance. So I'm very lucky to get invited to speak at those kind of conferences, either opening the conference to get people set up for success, or close the conference, maybe to ensure that they deliver under commitments of what they've spoken about at the conference. So you might do some goal setting work with them. But very often, that can lead to deeper discussions in the area of high performance, because I might speak for an hour, but, I often then work with senior leadership teams at a deeper level, where you might meet them a couple of days a year, or maybe a couple of times a quarter, again in the areas of high performance, and to really help them take some of the principles and really tease out, well, what do they look like for us? How do we kind of filter those learnings into our teams so that we can apply these principles to achieve the success that we want? And, some of the things I love to speak about, like, to be successful in any area of business, we need technical knowledge, we need academic insights, we need people's experience, we need the marketing, we need the IT, we need the infrastructure, we need the clients, of course. But we also, in my opinion, there's a whole wealth of other resources. We tend to spend most of our time with those first ones that I mentioned, the technical, the academic, the experience. But there's a whole range of other resources, and in actual fact, they're free, that if we were willing to spend time there. And the simplest example of this are we all aligned? And the importance of alignment, where everybody in the company knows where we're going, why we're doing it, and that they're all bought into that, so that they're giving their best. I talk a lot about one of the most underused resources in companies, which is their core values. And many companies, I think, maybe think that they're in a great place with their core values, but then when you begin to look a little bit deeper, a lot of the teams, the wider teams, may not know what the core values are. It doesn't mean that they're not living them. They could well be living them, which is a lot more important than knowing them. But very few companies use their core values, use them in a high performance way. And for me, they're a free resource, assuming that they're the right set of core values. And core values are designed to guide and shape our decisions, to help us get to where we want to get to. Why don't we use them on a regular basis? And so I love to explore that. It's a free resource. The companies that I've seen really use them seem to have amazing success. And there's a number of other free resources that about what about time effectiveness, really looking at where we're spending our time in our roles. Are people spending their time in the right places? Are they prioritizing their time in the right areas? And it's only when you begin to really peel back those areas, people can see huge opportunities to really elevate the performance of the companies. They're the kind of conversations that I love to get involved in with people.
I love that. Absolutely love that. You've been incredibly successful in terms of your own business and growing it to get into all these different corporations and helping them and everything like that. I know there is a lot of coaches and consultants out there who listen to this podcast, and I'd love to know, what would you say has been the most successful tool in terms of growing your business? Is it social media? Is it picking up the phone? Is it speaking at free events? What has worked best for you?
I think if I did number one, it's to care more about the customer than you do about the contract. And it's to almost give them even more than you said you were going to give. Because, sometimes you might go into, a restaurant or a shop or something, and, they'll promise something, but sometimes the promise doesn't quite match the experience. And for me, I try and, like I was doing a talk here this week, and I spent hours and hours and hours of prep just so I could just be a tiny bit different to what they might have been expecting, give them a little bit more. I did some research relative to the ask, and I said, how could I present this in a very impactful way? So I found a new way to present the problem that they felt they had. It's something I'd never used before. So it's continually innovating even my own standards, my own work, my own presentations. So even though I might be asked to speak on a particular topic next week that I was asked to speak about last week, I have a personal value. I've got to be improving. It's got to be better than that. And I find if I do one a week later and it's better than that one, then it's 2% better maybe than the one 2 weeks ago. So it's about always innovating, I guess. So there are two big things for me. And yes, the social media and marketing is very valuable. But for me, these are kind of core pillars I try and live by that have definitely helped me to kind of develop those relationships, because people feel like you really, really value them as clients, because you're giving them, not excellent, but the very best that you can. And I try and do that, deliver the very best that I can for my clients. And there are two of the ways I try and do that.
No, I love that. And I know you obviously speak all around the world, and I've seen you speak many times. We've spoken at things together, and you're absolutely fantastic, by the way. And during that time period, though, I know when you first started speaking, public speaking, you were quite intimidated by it, um, almost to the point of fear. And you've managed to overcome that fear and now speak in front of thousands of people at a time. How did you overcome the fear, and what tips can you give people while they're here?
Yeah, well, funny, even before I answer that question, I think that's one of my greatest blessings, the fact that I was massively challenged by a pathological fear of public speaking like a couple of decades ago. And for me now, and I was even talking about this to somebody in the last couple of days, I think the fact that I still get that adrenaline even now, kind of, and I've done it thousands of times at this stage, it still doesn't come naturally to me. Sometimes I still get nervous. Usually it's excitement, but sometimes I still get a little bit nervous. But I think it's really served me well, because I can't stand up and not be prepared. I have to. I cannot. I would need to do hours and hours of research and practice and scripting and really honing how am I going to deliver this message, and I still do that to this day. And I think that's a secret weapon. It means I'm always giving my best, because I don't. It's like, you look at any of the professional golfers, and maybe there's a metaphor or a message there. I still watch a bit of golf, and as soon as those guys or ladies are finished playing 4 or 5 hours of golf, they still go back to the practice ground afterwards. And I think that's a great message for all of us, because that's their job, and you and I do what we do. In terms of overcoming fear, practicing and conscious, where I might be in my office, which I'm in right now, but if I'm delivering a talk this afternoon, I might pretend I'm there, even though I'm in my office, and I'll imagine I'm in front of the audience. So that's an extra layer of practice. Definitely focus on my breathing. I got a great breathing tip many years ago, and it's like intentional breathing, where you're actually breathing. For me, it's kind of breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 7, and then slowly breathing out for 11, 12 seconds. And I do that repeatedly. And I'm sure you would have some great ideas around this as well yourself, and I'm sure you would be well aware of the power of breathing, where it grounds you, it centers you, it slows the heart rate down. It's also a great distraction tool. So, and I think also one last one. So focus. Where's your focus? So when I used to be nervous, my focus was all on me. But in actual fact, I discovered it's never about me, the presenter. It's always about the audience. So I'd focus on them, how I'm going to show up at my best for them. Maybe focus on the message that you're going to deliver, the benefit of what you're going to talk about. And when you're focusing on those things, you're not focusing on yourself. So that's another great distraction technique as well.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, and I think that last one is very valid, because when you come from that place of love where you're giving, and you truly come from your heart self rather than your head self, it can really help in terms of bringing that energy across. And also because you have less fear, because you're in a state of love, it means then you're not worrying so much, and that keeps the energy in a more positive state, more aligned, as you were talking about earlier on. And talking of speaking, I'm very honored to have you speak at the Leadership and Life Mastery Summit on Saturday, the 21st of September at the Hilton Dublin Airport Hotel. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be speaking about to entice more people to come along and listen in.
Well, first of all, I'm delighted to be speaking at the event. Apart from, the friendship that we have, I also know a few of the speakers there. I know Lee 20 is speaking there. I know Marissa Peer, who I've heard speak before, and I think is an amazing speaker. I know she's speaking out, and I know you've got lots of other great speakers as well. So I'm looking forward to sitting in and listening to as many of those as I can. My particular topic, I'm doing a session where I'm going to ask people a question. And before we dive into the question, which we're going to do for my entire session, we're going to dive into one single question. But as I ask the question, I'm going to ask people, have you ever considered that question before? Have you ever thought about that question before? And every time I ask people that question, once I've shared the question, everybody says, no, I've never thought about that question before. And yet, I think it's a profoundly valuable question, and it's all centered around wanting to show up at your best. And whether it's in work, whether it's outside work, whether it's in a family setting, whether it's in around work-life balance. So the question I'm going to be inviting people to consider, but we're not just going to ask the question, we're going to peel it right back. It's almost like I'm going to spend a good 30 minutes where people are going to really dissect the question. I'm going to break it into many, many parts for them. But at a very high level, the question, it's a bit of a mouthful, but I might even, if you'll allow me today, I might even repeat it twice so people can really allow it to sink in. And the question is centered around, for you to show up and perform at your optimum best and to have work-life balance, if that's something you would want to be even better, what would an ideal week look like for you in terms of your behaviors and your activities? Now, it is a mouthful, but if you consciously read the question or reflect on the question, it's a very simple question, but potentially very valuable for you to show up and perform at your optimum best and to have work-life balance, if that's something you want to improve. What would an ideal week look like for you in terms of your behaviors and activities? There's a key word in there, Doug. You might have spotted. What would an ideal week? You don't even have to be doing it the day of the workshop. So you get a chance to design your ideal week. So that's what I'm looking forward to working with you and your attendees with.
Oh, that's brilliant. And I'm so grateful, because obviously I've asked all the speakers to very much focus. Yeah, they can speak for 20 minutes, but they have to do at least 20 minutes workshop. And it sounds like you're going to be doing more than that. So people are going to get a lot of value. It's going to be a fantastic day, and looking forward to seeing you and everybody else there as well. Gerry, we're almost running out of time. I just want to thank you for all you do in the world, in Ireland, in the UK. If anybody doesn't know Gerry, how can people get in touch with you, Gerry?
Yeah, I'm very easy to find. My website, gerryduffyacademy.com, or LinkedIn. I hang out on LinkedIn quite a bit as well.
Fantastic. My name's Doug Gordon, and you've been listening to Gerry Duffy on Inspirational People, Inspirational Stories. I'll be back next week with another inspirational guest. In the meantime, if you need to get in touch, please contact me at doug@dougdgordon.com. From all of us here on the team on the show, I wish you a truly inspirational week, and look forward to speaking to you next time.